The galaxy was a vast expanse, filled with countless worlds and civilizations, each with its own culture, history, and power. Yet there was one rule that united all of them, a rule that even the most advanced and dangerous races dared not break. The rule was simple: do not wake the humans. It was an unspoken commandment, passed down through the ages, and every civilization in the galaxy knew it well. To disturb Earth, to provoke humanity, was to invite destruction. This was not just a warning, it was a fact. No one knew exactly what had happened to the humans in the distant past, but the whispers were enough. Earth's history was stained with bloodshed, wars, and violent conflicts that had shaped their society. The humans had a dark side, one that, if awakened, could destroy entire civilizations. The stories of humanity's power were almost mythical. Some said they had wiped out entire alien species in the blink of an eye, using nothing more than their will and their technology. Others said that Earth had once been home to a race of warriors so powerful, so unrelenting, that they had turned entire star systems into barren wastelands. No one was sure how much of this was true, but it didn't matter. The rule was clear: do not wake the humans. For centuries, the galaxy had lived in peace, each race knowing that Earth was a place best left undisturbed. The humans had kept to themselves, isolated from the rest of the galaxy, and in return the other civilizations had respected their space. No one dared to provoke Earth, for the fear of what would happen was too great. The humans were peaceful, yes, but that peace was the calm before a storm, and it was a storm no one wanted to face. However, not all races in the galaxy were content to follow the rule. The Xylon Empire, a ruthless and expansionist civilization, had grown tired of waiting. They were hungry for power, and the knowledge that Earth held the key to unimaginable strength gnawed at them. The Xylons had heard the stories, the legends of humanity's power, but they were no longer willing to believe them. They saw Earth as just another planet, just another conquest to add to their ever-growing empire. They believed that the human race was weak, unprepared for war, and ripe for domination. They were wrong. The Xylon fleet, a massive armada of warships, cruised through the galaxy with one goal in mind: Earth. The fleet's commanders had long since dismissed the old warnings, believing them to be nothing more than fairy tales told to scare the weak. They had grown confident in their strength, their technology, and their ability to crush any civilization that stood in their way. As they neared Earth, they celebrated their victory before the battle had even begun, confident that their superior firepower would obliterate any resistance. They were unaware that their actions would soon awaken something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. As the first Xylon ships entered Earth's orbit, the humans did not panic. They did not retreat or hide. Instead, they moved swiftly and decisively. Military leaders across the globe issued the same command: prepare for war. Humanity had been silently preparing for this day for decades. Earth had been quietly building its strength, its war machines, and its soldiers, all while the rest of the galaxy assumed the humans were still a peaceful, defenseless race. The Xylon fleet expected a quick, easy victory. They had fought wars across the galaxy, and the humans, with their primitive technology and outdated weaponry, seemed like nothing more than an obstacle in their path. They were wrong. Earth's military had advanced in ways the Xylons could never have predicted. They had developed technologies that were far beyond what anyone had imagined. And most importantly, they had something no other civilization in the galaxy had ever faced: a people who had been forged in the fires of countless wars, a people who had learned the true meaning of survival. As the Xylon ships fired their first shots, humanity responded with deadly precision. Earth's dreadnoughts, massive warships equipped with advanced weaponry, emerged from hidden bases deep within the planet's atmosphere. The humans did not fight with the desperation of a race cornered. They fought with the certainty of a people who had been preparing for this moment for centuries. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Xylon fleet, once so confident in their superiority, now found themselves struggling to keep up with Earth's tactics. The humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to show the galaxy that they would never be ruled again. Earth had been quiet for so long, but the galaxy had forgotten the true strength of humanity. The Xylon Empire would learn this lesson the hard way. The first shots had been fired, and the battle for Earth had begun. But this would not be an ordinary war. The humans had a history of destruction, of wars fought to the very edge of the galaxy. And this time, Earth would not stand idly by. As the battle raged on, the Xylon commanders began to realize the gravity of their mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The humans were not weak. They were not helpless. They were a force to be reckoned with, and they had only just begun to fight. In the dark depths of space, where the stars seemed to watch in silence, the Xylon Empire's victory celebration quickly turned to panic. The humans had awoken, and they were not as the galaxy had assumed. They were far, far worse. The calm of Earth was shattered, and now the storm was coming. The Xylon fleet hovered in Earth's orbit, its warships gleaming ominously in the vastness of space. Their commanders, confident and unshaken, issued orders to initiate the full-scale assault on the planet below. For years, the Xylon Empire had seen themselves as the pinnacle of power in the galaxy. Their ships were faster, their weapons deadlier, and their tactics were nearly flawless. And yet, as they prepared to engage, they overlooked one crucial detail. They had underestimated humanity. The first salvo of Xylon missiles tore through the atmosphere, streaking across the sky like fiery comets. They struck with precision, targeting Earth's most vulnerable points, military installations, communications hubs, and the like. The Xylons believed it was the beginning of a swift victory. They expected to see human resistance crumble, to watch the planet's defenses fall one by one. What they didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment, in silence, for longer than they could imagine. Back on Earth, military leaders were watching the incoming strike with cold determination. The humans were not panicked. They were not frightened. They had been preparing for this day for years, even when the galaxy had assumed they were a peaceful, harmless race. Every human being, every soldier, every leader, knew what was at stake. Earth had been quiet for far too long, and now, the galaxy's most dangerous secret was about to be revealed. Across the world, military commands were issued. The human response was swift. Within minutes of the Xylon attack, Earth's defense systems activated. Hidden weapons caches that no one outside of Earth had ever known about sprang to life. Massive dreadnoughts, built in secret deep beneath the planet's crust, rose from underground silos and launched themselves into the atmosphere. These were no ordinary ships. They were the product of decades of secret research, designed to be humanity's ultimate weapon. Some were equipped with energy cannons capable of decimating entire fleets, others with advanced shielding that could withstand the most powerful laser beams the Xylons could muster. The Xylon commanders watched in disbelief as their missiles failed to breach Earth's defenses. Their once perfect assault quickly turned into chaos. The first wave of their ships, which had anticipated an easy invasion, now found themselves under fire. Humanity's defenses were overwhelming, and their response was precise. Each ship, each dreadnought, acted like a well-oiled machine, deploying countermeasures, blasting Xylon ships out of the sky, and pushing forward into the heart of the enemy armada. Impossible. Rezak, the Xylon fleet commander, hissed through his teeth as he watched their missiles deflect off of Earth's shields. He slammed his fist against the control panel, frustration mounting in his voice. "What do you mean their defenses are holding?" His crew scrambled to make sense of the situation. It was unheard of. No civilization, not even the ancient ones, had ever resisted the Xylon Empire's initial onslaught. The humans had defied all expectations. The Xylon fleet, once certain of their inevitable victory, was now on the defensive. But it was not just their ships or weapons that were catching the Xylons off guard. It was the humans' sheer tenacity, their instinct to fight for survival, that struck terror into their hearts. Earth's military wasn't just organized. They were relentless. Every human on Earth knew what was at stake. This was not just about victory. It was about survival, and they would fight to the last man, woman, and child to protect their home. As the battle raged in space, humanity's ground forces were mobilized. Soldiers, veterans of countless conflicts, stood side by side with civilians, ready to take the fight to the Xylons on the surface. Earth's armies had been preparing for war for decades, creating specialized units trained to fight against invaders. These soldiers, skilled in hand-to-hand combat, guerrilla tactics, and the use of advanced weaponry, were humanity's greatest weapon. And yet, the Xylons had no idea just how far humanity had gone in their preparation. When Earth's infantry engaged the Xylon ground forces, they found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The humans did not retreat. They did not surrender. Instead, they fought like animals protecting their den, savage and unrelenting, using every ounce of their strength and resourcefulness to push back the invaders. The Xylon commanders were beginning to realize that this was not going to be an easy conquest. The humans were not like the other species they had encountered. They weren't just fighters. They were survivors. Their resilience was unmatched, and the Xylons were slowly beginning to understand the terrible truth. The humans had been preparing for this day for a long time. But despite the setbacks, Rezak refused to back down. "We will crush them," he muttered, staring at the holographic map of the battle in front of him. "The galaxy will bow to the Xylon Empire, and Earth will be ours." Yet, as the Xylon fleet regrouped for another offensive, they were met with a new wave of humanity's wrath. From every corner of Earth's surface, from every ocean, desert, and city, new weapons began to fire into the sky. The humans had only just begun to show their true strength, and the Xylons were already in retreat. Earth's war machines had come to life, and their fury was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Xylon fleet, though powerful, was now being pushed back, their ships falling from the sky like meteors. The humans had struck first. They had awakened something far more terrifying than the Xylons could have ever imagined. In the dark, silent void of space, where stars burned cold and distant, the Xylon fleet could now hear it. The sound of their mistake. It was the sound of humanity fighting back, and it was a sound they would never forget. The Xylon fleet, once full of confidence, had quickly found itself on the back foot. Their perfect plan to annihilate humanity was rapidly crumbling before their eyes. Each passing minute saw more of their warships torn apart by Earth's advanced weaponry, and their shock began to turn to fear. No one had expected this kind of resistance from a race they considered primitive. Yet, as their fleet was being shredded by humanity's might, the Xylons could do nothing but try to regroup and adjust their tactics. Rezak, the commander of the Xylon fleet, paced frantically in his command center. His sharp alien features twisted in frustration. How did they do this? He muttered, watching the holoscreen, now flashing with alarming red alerts. They should have been wiped out in minutes. What are they hiding? His second-in-command, a younger Xylon named Turak, stood beside him, eyes darting over the chaotic data. "Sir, it seems they've been preparing for this day. For years. All their research, all their military strength. It's all hidden, buried under the surface of their planet." "Impossible," Rezak growled. "Their technology shouldn't be able to compete with ours. It's barbaric." But as more of his ships were shot down, Rezak couldn't ignore the facts any longer. Humanity had somehow, against all odds, built defenses that could rival the Xylon Empire's finest ships. More dreadnoughts appeared on Earth's horizon. Massive, imposing warships with weapons unlike anything the Xylons had ever seen. These ships, known as Titans, were humanity's ultimate secret weapon. They had been developed in the deepest recesses of Earth's military network, away from prying eyes, hidden beneath layers of secrecy and deception. As they emerged from the atmosphere, they revealed their true power. massive energy cannons, capable of destroying entire fleets with a single shot, opened fire. The first few shots of the Titan's cannons tore through the Xylon fleet like a hot knife through butter. The alien ships, once untouchable in their own arrogance, began to crumble and burn. As the Xylon fleet reeled from the sudden onslaught, Razak's anger and disbelief reached a boiling point. This isn't possible. How can they have this kind of technology? He slammed his fist against the console in front of him. They've been hiding their true power all along. Turak cautiously approached his commander. Sir, I believe this is just the beginning. If we don't change tactics, we will be wiped out. They're not just fighting us. They're fighting for survival. Razak clenched his teeth, barely able to contain his fury. Then let them fight. We'll destroy them before they get the chance to fully mobilize. Prepare for a full assault. But it was already too late. The Xylon fleet's initial superiority was quickly evaporating as the humans unleashed wave after wave of unrelenting firepower. Each ship the Xylons sent into battle was met with increasingly fierce resistance. Even as their forces closed in on Earth, their numbers seemed to dwindle with every passing second. Earth's defense grid had turned from a fragile hope to an impenetrable wall of destruction. Nothing in the galaxy had prepared the Xylons for this. On Earth's surface, the situation was equally grim for the Xylon ground forces. The first wave of invaders, who had landed with the expectation of an easy victory, were now finding themselves trapped in a world that did not belong to them. Soldiers wearing advanced exosuits fought back with brutal efficiency, and their laser weapons cut down Xylon warriors who had never anticipated being in such a dire situation. These humans were not afraid of them. They were hungry for victory. In the aftermath of the initial onslaught, as Xylon warships lay burning in the sky, and their soldiers crumbled under humanity's relentless assault, the Xylon commanders were forced to confront a terrifying truth. They had awakened a force they could not control. The human forces, organized and efficient, had only just begun to unleash their fury. The Xylons, despite their immense technological advantage, were now in full retreat, and it was only a matter of time before they would be completely overwhelmed. The Xylon Empire had underestimated humanity's capacity for war, for destruction, and for resilience. In the skies above Earth, the Titans continued their assault, unleashing wave after wave of devastating firepower. The Xylon fleet, despite all its resources and might, was now nothing more than a shadow of its former self. Earth's final stand had begun, and the humans were not backing down. The human forces on the ground were pushing the Xylon invaders back, inch by inch, mile by mile. The Xylons had no idea what kind of force they had truly awoken. Earth's soldiers, each trained for a lifetime to protect their home, fought with an intensity that could not be matched by any other force in the galaxy. As the Xylon fleet limped away, retreating back into the dark expanse of space, Razak's mind was flooded with doubt. He had come to conquer, but instead, he had awoken a sleeping giant. "Get us out of here," Razak ordered grimly, his voice shaking with both fury and disbelief. "Return to the Empire. We need reinforcements." And just like that, the greatest invasion in galactic history had been repelled. The humans had made their stand, and the Xylon Empire had learned a lesson they would never forget. Earth was not a planet to be trifled with. It was a force that could no longer be ignored. The retreating Xylon fleet struggled to maintain any semblance of order as it limped back toward the depths of space. The damage inflicted on their ships was catastrophic. Some of their finest warships were crippled beyond repair, their hulls pierced by human-made weapons they had once laughed off as primitive. Razak, though seething with rage, couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. His forces, once confident and invincible, had been reduced to little more than a scattered remnant of their former might. And Earth had proven to be a force beyond his understanding. As the fleet made its retreat, the surviving ships had no choice but to leave their dead behind. These were ships that had once roamed the stars with an aura of invincibility, but now they were nothing more than burned husks, drifting aimlessly in space. For Razak and his officers, it was a crushing defeat, a galaxy-wide empire brought to its knees by a species they had considered nothing more than an insignificant blip in the vastness of space. Back on Earth, the human military forces had not relaxed. There was no time for celebration, not yet. The threat of the Xylon Empire had not been fully eradicated, and humanity knew that the Xylons would return, perhaps with more firepower, more strategy, or even reinforcements from their distant allies. Earth's military high command was already hard at work, analyzing every piece of data from the battle and strategizing for the next confrontation. They knew that this war was far from over, but for the first time in their history, humanity had delivered a crushing blow to an intergalactic empire, and that knowledge fueled their resolve. On the ground, the soldiers who had fought to defend Earth could hardly believe what they had just experienced. The battle had been grueling, but the Xylons had underestimated the sheer determination and fighting spirit of the humans. The exosuits they had once believed would be useless against an advanced alien race had proven to be devastating. They had fought through the alien forces with precision, their weapons cutting through the Xylon soldiers like knives through butter. The alien invaders had expected to find easy targets, unprepared, weak humans who would submit to their superior technology. Instead, they had been met with a fury they could not have imagined. But as humanity celebrated its hard-won victory, they understood that the war was far from over. There would be no time for rest. The Xylon Empire, having tasted defeat, would not be quick to forget it. Their pride would demand retribution. Razak would report to his superiors, and they would come up with a new strategy, a better plan. Back on the Xylon command ship, the Council of the Empire gathered for an emergency meeting. Their faces were tight with anger, their voices sharp with frustration. No one could believe the words they were hearing. The humans had not only resisted but had struck back with a ferocity that no one had foreseen. The Council's grand plan had failed, and they were no longer the unstoppable force they had once believed themselves to be. "We underestimated them," said the head of the Council, a towering Xylon named Jarek. His voice was cold but laced with disbelief. "We believed them weak, primitive, but they are more than we anticipated. Much more. They've defeated our finest fleet," said another council member, his voice trembling. "How? What kind of power could they have that we didn't know about?" "We need to know more," Jarek growled, his mandibles clicking with frustration. "We need to understand how these humans fought back so effectively." The room fell silent as the council pondered their next move. The Xylons were not accustomed to failure, and their pride would demand swift and decisive action. They would not leave Earth alone. They would return, and when they did, they would ensure their victory. The humans, however, were not about to let them come back unchallenged. Back on Earth, the people watched the stars, their thoughts both hopeful and wary. The invasion had been repelled, but it had left its mark. Though Earth had tasted victory, the bitter reality was that the universe was vast, and the Xylon Empire was not the only power out there. If the Xylons had underestimated humanity, who was to say who else might come for Earth next? Humanity's victory was hard won, but it was only the beginning. There was no time to rest on their laurels. With the knowledge that they had defeated the Xylons' first assault, humanity now knew what they were capable of. They had tapped into a power they hadn't fully understood until that moment. Their survival depended not just on weapons or technology, but on their sheer will to fight, to defend what was theirs. And as the Xylon Empire licked its wounds and made its plans, the humans made theirs as well. The defeat of the Xylons had proven one thing for certain. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They had fought for their survival, and now they would fight for their future. The battle was over, but the war had just begun. The stars glittered coldly above the galaxy, a haunting reminder of how vast and dangerous the universe truly was. For the Xylon Empire, their recent defeat at the hands of humanity had left an indelible mark. What had been a swift and confident conquest plan had now unraveled before them, leaving only the bitter sting of failure. And failure was something the Xylon Empire did not tolerate. They had underestimated Earth's resolve, its strength, and its ability to fight back. But the truth of it all was that humanity was not simply fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to protect their place in the galaxy. Back on Earth, a new sense of urgency and purpose had taken root. The victory against the Xylons was monumental, but it was also a stark reminder of how fragile humanity's position had been, how quickly it could have been lost. Earth had barely survived the first wave, and everyone knew that the Xylon Empire would not be content with just one defeat. If anything, this would make them even more determined to crush the human resistance and reassert their dominance in the galaxy. The leaders of Earth's military were already meeting in their war rooms, strategizing their next move. They had proven that Earth could defend itself, but they had also proven how vulnerable they were. They knew that the Xylons would return, and when they did, they would come back in full force. The next battle could be far more devastating, and they needed to be prepared. Every commander, every soldier, knew the importance of the next fight. There would be no room for mistakes. A new breed of soldiers had emerged from the shadows. Men and women who had once led peaceful lives were now hardened warriors, trained for combat on levels they had never imagined. Human combat training had always been fierce, but in the aftermath of the Xylon invasion, it had taken on a new meaning. Soldiers were no longer just fighting for their country. They were fighting for their very survival. The skills they honed would be tested like never before, and their strength, both mental and physical, would have to exceed everything the Xylons had imagined. At the head of these new forces stood Captain Marcus Drake, a man whose name had become synonymous with humanity's resilience. He had led his troops through the fiercest battles of the first invasion and had never once faltered. His understanding of human combat strategy, honed over years of training, had been the key to their victory. Now, Drake had a new responsibility, ensuring that Earth was not only ready for the Xylons' return, but that humanity was prepared to fight smarter, stronger, and more ruthlessly than ever before. "We cannot afford to let our guard down," Drake said, standing before a group of his most trusted officers. His voice was steady, but there was an edge of urgency to it. "The Xylons will come back, and when they do, we need to hit them harder. We need to strike first and show them that the victory they thought they had is just a temporary setback. Earth is not some backwater planet. We've just begun to show them what we're truly capable of." The room was silent as Drake's words settled in. Each officer knew the weight of the challenge ahead. The war had just begun, and every single one of them would need to be at their best. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Xylon leadership was in turmoil. They had thought humanity would be easy prey, primitive, unorganized, and far from a serious threat. Now they were reeling from the unexpected might of Earth's military, and as much as they hated to admit it, they knew they had miscalculated. Razak, the commander who had led the initial assault on Earth, stood before the council in disgrace. His reputation, once esteemed, was now in tatters. His fleet, broken and scattered, had failed to deliver the crushing blow that the Xylons had expected. His warriors had been outmaneuvered, outfought, and utterly defeated. Worse still, they had underestimated Earth's ability to adapt and fight back. The humans had turned the tide in the blink of an eye. It was something the Xylons had never seen before. "I will not let this failure define us," Razak said, his voice low but filled with determination. "We will return to Earth, and we will finish what we started. We have the means, the numbers, and the resolve. They may have won a battle, but we will win the war." The council listened intently, knowing Razak's pride and ambition could drive him to extreme lengths. The defeat had been humiliating, but in the Xylon Empire, humiliation was a motivator, not a deterrent. They would rebuild, regroup, and return with a vengeance. They would come back stronger, faster, and with more forces at their disposal. The human victory was seen not as a victory, but as a temporary setback, a small bump in their grand plans. Meanwhile, on Earth, the leadership knew the Xylons would return stronger than ever. There was no delusion about this. The stakes had been raised, and the new threat would require even more than the last time. Humanity could not afford to be caught off guard again. The Xylons would not underestimate them a second time. It was clear that Earth's survival depended on continuous preparation, unity, and the will to fight. As the days passed, humanity continued to prepare, training, refining, and evolving. New weapons were developed, tactics were revised, and alliances were forged. The human spirit had been awakened in ways that no one had ever anticipated. The galaxy's greatest secret, Earth's true power, had been revealed. The universe would soon know that humanity was not to be trifled with. When the Xylons returned, they would face not just the Earth they had once conquered, but a planet ready to fight for its future. And for the first time, the Xylons knew the humans would be ready. The battle would be fought with all the strength, cunning, and unyielding determination humanity could muster. Earth had tasted victory, and it would not let go of it so easily. The Xylon Empire's pride would drive them to act, but humanity's spirit would ensure they would never conquer Earth. The next war would be the final test for both sides. Who would emerge victorious? Only time would tell. The calm before the storm was over. Earth's military might have been tested and tempered in the fires of combat. Humanity, once underestimated, had risen to the challenge, delivering a resounding blow to the invading Xylon forces. But that victory, as sweet as it was, had only set the stage for an even more intense battle. The Xylons, proud and vengeful, would not let the humans' defiance go unpunished. Earth's new resolve would soon be put to the ultimate test. Back on Earth, Captain Marcus Drake had become a symbol of the fight for survival. His name was whispered with reverence among his comrades, and his reputation stretched across the globe. His leadership had turned the tide against the invaders, but now the weight of responsibility fell squarely on his shoulders. Every decision, every move, would shape the future of humanity. The Xylons would not be content with their loss, and the next time they came, they would come with greater force. Drake stood on the observation deck of the Earth's flagship, gazing out into the cold expanse of space. He knew what was coming. The Xylons would return. They had always believed that Earth was weak, unprepared, and far too fragile to withstand a galactic conquest. But humanity had proven them wrong. The entire galaxy had watched as Earth's forces held their ground. But this victory had only drawn the Xylons' ire. They were now preparing for their return, one that would be far more brutal. A voice behind Drake pulled him from his thoughts. "Sir, the reports are in. The Xylons are amassing near the edges of the Sol system." Drake nodded, turning to face the officer. "I figured as much," he said, his voice steady. "We need to be ready." Humanity had always been reactive in the past, responding to threats as they appeared. But this time, it was different. The humans would strike first. Their new weapons, developed in the wake of the first invasion, were far beyond anything the Xylons had anticipated. The Earth's fleet was not only larger but more technologically advanced. And most importantly, they had the advantage of knowing what their enemy was capable of. As Drake prepared his forces, the military leaders of Earth were already strategizing their next steps. The galaxy was watching closely. They knew that if humanity fell, there would be no one left to stand against the Xylons. This would be the final stand for Earth. There would be no second chances. On the Xylon side, Razak and his commanders were rallying their forces. They had been humiliated by the human counterattack, but pride was a powerful motivator. The Xylons had underestimated Earth once, and they would not make that mistake again. They had learned from their errors, studying the humans' tactics and preparing their next assault with ruthless precision. This time, they would be ready. Razak stood in front of the council, his expression grim. "The humans may have won a battle, but they will not win the war. We will crush them." He knew what the Xylons had to do: force a decisive battle, one that would leave humanity no option but to surrender or perish. They would test the full might of the Xylon Empire. And this time, Earth would feel the full weight of their wrath. The two forces, Earth and the Xylons, prepared for the inevitable clash. The vastness of space would soon become the battlefield for the fate of humanity. Earth had shown the galaxy its strength, but it was no longer just about survival. Humanity had tasted victory, and now they would fight to keep it. As the days drew closer to the confrontation, the tension in the air was palpable. Soldiers trained with even greater urgency. Earth's military had gone from a unified front to a force of unrelenting warriors. Every soldier, every officer, was ready for the war to come. There was no doubt in their minds that the Xylons would come with everything they had, but humanity would face them with everything they could muster. Back on the Xylon flagship, Rezak could sense the changing tides of the war. His soldiers were ready, but the knowledge that Earth had grown stronger, more cunning, and more desperate made him uneasy. This would not be like the first assault. Earth's resolve had been forged in fire, and the Xylons now understood that humanity would not bow easily. The final battle was inevitable. Earth had shown its true power, but the Xylons were not going to take their defeat lightly. The clash that would define the fate of the galaxy was drawing closer. Drake and his comrades stood ready to defend everything they had fought for, and in the dark, cold reaches of space, the Xylon fleet waited, its engines glowing with the promise of destruction. The galaxy's greatest secret had been exposed. Humanity was not to be underestimated. And now, the true test would begin. Would humanity survive, or would the Xylons finally break them? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. This would be a war like no other. The universe would never forget the day Earth rose to fight for its future.